Hi, beauties. I trust you are remarkable this evening. I'm coming to you live from the studio, from Silver Birch Studios here in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Totally excited to be here. So I just wanted to talk about this journey for a few minutes and how we got to a place of creating all of this. A lot of it had to do with like a whole bunch of prayers. It's really strange to talk in here because, all of the sound absorption. So first thing I wanted to talk about was the ceiling, because the ceiling is amazing. So check this out. This is the beginnings of the ceiling, and we can change the colors up there. But I love it. So the idea was that it's based off of the golden ratio. So the whole building, the whole space is based off the golden ratio. I'll go ahead and walk you through some of it for a few minutes here. About 12 years ago, a little bit longer, Stephen and I were making maybe $12,000 a year. And we were really in this place of like release everything from our lives that was no longer serving us. Meaning getting to the very, very core of who we were. And it was really funny. Stephen we were busy raising 3 small children at the time. We had just finished off from touring, and we were looking at what do we do in order to start fulfilling our dreams. So we were making these boards and doing lots of visualizations, and we were meeting with like grief counselors. I was meeting with grief counselors, and really going through and owning all of the parts of myself that I needed to look at in order to strategically align myself in order to live the biggest life. And in terms of like the biggest life, to me, it meant, how do I give back on the largest scale so that the most amount of people can begin thriving in their life? How can I be, through prayer and through gratitude, how can I be in alignment in serving humanity at a high level? So we didn't know how we were going to do it. And we lived in a really cute little house, and we were in this deep place of really figuring out what were all of the parts of us that we needed to heal in order to really look at how to create a campus eventually. One of those things was we took the Dave Ramsey course, which was amazing. And that really helped me to start understanding what's going on financially, what happens in financial flow, and how to become more literate in so many ways that I wasn't literate before. And I don't know. Oh, hi. Yay! I know, it is exciting. I was just going to broadcast that one. Thanks, love. So in this time, I started looking at like, what are my friendship relationships looking like? What are my financial relationships looking like? Where are my core pieces that I really need to readjust and realign? And one thing that kept on coming up for me was this idea that you have to be cruel. You have to be wicked. You have to backstab people. You have to, I kept coming up to that wall in the entertainment industry. So many people were like just, and I see it more and more often, right? We've kind of given this volume and this voice to this idea of be mean to people, be mean-spirited, like, this attack. And I've always chosen the other direction. Sometimes I get into a place where I'm like, I don't want to choose the other direction. But by the end of 20 minutes, after I sit down and I recognize like, what are the parts of me that are holding this toxicity? So I got into this deep prayer 12 years ago, this deep prayer of gratitude. And I started posting every single day, one thing, at least one thing that I was grateful for. Even if the day was terrible, even if I hadn't slept that night, if the kids had the flu, whatever the story was, if Stephen and I were having a challenging time, I consistently got to a place of gratitude because I recognized that was the one thing that was going to help shift so that I could be in alignment in order to start helping to serve humanity. So let me know if you've ever been there where you're in this place of like, this is so overwhelming. Everything is shutting down, people are dying, relationships are parting. So in that space, even in there, getting into a place of gratitude. So every night for years, I was posting gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. And people are like, what are you talking about? You're ridiculous. You're only making $12,000 a year. You don't even know. And it was probably less than $12,000 a year. My parents were helping us by cooking food, which they still do to this day. My dad does. So I started to develop this idea of family and how to bring in the people who were living on the streets and how to reach out to the people who had nothing and how to offer words of encouragement when people were at their very worst and how to be the one person that sat with people as their life was falling apart and helping them to maybe get a different mindset going, or maybe not. Sometimes it was just to listen. So year after year, with gratitude and with prayer, I began to expand this vision. And Stephen came upon a guy, his name is Wesley Show. And we were like, wow, look at this, these dream studios. There's only a few within the world. And the whole point of the studio was to base it on an idea of higher frequencies. This has perfect sound. And Stephen and I sat and we dreamed for a while and we talked, and I was like, imagine what it would be like to have one of those studios. Imagine that. How many lives you could touch. And so year and year went by, and we went from like 12,000. the one time Stephen was out of a job and I was working as a waitress, and he wasn't able to get a job. And I continued to be a waitress. He was staying at home and he was becoming more and more depressed. And the one job that we talked to the pastor at our church, and the pastor was like, I might have a job for Stephen, but I'm not sure yet. And I don't know if it would work out. So the one job that he didn't end up getting was to be able to take the bodies that had died of people and place them into the furnace. And that was the one job that he didn't get. And that probably would have put him over the edge if that was the one job. And bless those people who that is their job. But that is the one job he didn't get. And instead, I stayed into this idea of prayer and gratitude. And I was like, honey, somehow it's all going to work out. I don't know how. But if this is our dream, in order to create a studio and a campus where people can heal in such a toxic environment, where there's so much backstabbing happening, wow, imagine what we could do. And so we stayed the course. Friends came and went, and we stayed the course, and we kept on with gratitude. So years went by. Stephen started working at a company, and then he got this vision, and he wrote it all out on a little piece of paper, like we do with all of our songs. We wrote it all on a piece of paper, and we were sharing it. We're like, and Stephen's like, I think this is like something having to do with the medical field, and he had it all mapped out. And I was like, wow, that's a real blessing. Holy Toledo. And so sure enough, during a really big down market, they got all of the finances. He and his partners got the finances in order to put this together to help form a part of the healthcare industry that a lot of people experience these days when they go into the hospitals. And that was when we were making less than $12,000 a year. So the next big phase came. We eventually moved out of the neighborhood and we bought another house. And that house, we began to envision the idea of this beautiful campus. And it had been with us for a long time, but the more that we were getting here and the closer that we got, the more that we were like, oh my gosh, it's so close, it's so close. And one thing after another happened at Stephen's work, and one of the pieces that really helped him to start shifting was the misery that he was experiencing. And I'd often heard about this for people who, you visualize and you see that somehow they have all this wealth, but yet they're completely miserable. And so I remember sitting in church the one time and talking with this pastor, and I was saying, I think I'd rather have money and be miserable than not be able to pay doctor bills. I think I'd rather be on that end of the spectrum if I'm going to be on the misery spectrum at all, which I wasn't. But if I'm going to be there, that's where I wanted to be. Bob Proctor, I started reading his books. So I'll go down some of the list of books that I started to read because I realized it wasn't somebody else. It was nobody else's fault that I was making $12,000 a year. Less than that. Mine. My responsibility to pick myself up. And I recognize how there is great injustice within the world. And so Stephen and I do our best in order to reach those people and in order to bring resources. But the key is that people have to do it for themselves. And so Stephen and I went through a really, really challenging time for quite a few years. We've been married 22. And at around year 17, as we were envisioning all of this, we had to decide if we were going to stay together or if we were going to go on different paths. So I had an opportunity to be able to be in London, and in order to start touring again, in order to just to follow my heart. And I prayed about it, and I heard, that's not your path. You could do that. You can go, you can tour stages around the globe again. You can go do that. But your path is to return home and to create a stable environment for humans. Not only my own children, but also humanity. This is all while people are still saying all kinds of wonderful things about me. And like at one point, a friend of mine came up to me and she's like, so many people are saying so much stuff about you. I'm like, really? What is it? Tell me. And so she went on this long, long list of all the things that people were saying about me that were like just cruel. And I was like, wow, isn't that intriguing? And I just listened to her for a while, and I'm like, and what's showing up for you while you're hearing all of this? And she's like, well, I wanted to like punch him. And I'm like, what is the point? I have lived on the outside of this society for such an extraordinarily period of time. And every single time, I'm always called in to look at things from a different perspective. And I am here to tell you that it is possible to be kind to people. It is possible on the night that this is all coming to fruition. It is possible to take a different path in life. It is possible to stop blaming people, stop shaming people, start listening to people. Thank you, Johanna. Yeah, it is a beautiful studio. So while everybody else was around us telling us how things weren't going to work out, how miserable life should be, how awful life is, I get it. I get that is where volume can be turned up. But I also know that there are islands throughout the world of truly wonderful people who are coming together in order to create a different reality. I know it because I'm one of those people. So when I came back in with Stephen, and it was really, really a challenging time to come back together. That bitterness, that hostility, that, oh, right? Clearly, I have a little bit of fire behind me. But to realize that it wasn't about me. I'm a vessel, I'm a vehicle in order to help people get planted. But it wasn't about me. So just about 3 years ago, we started up like talking to a person who does investments, a financial counselor. And even that wasn't easy, right? There's a lot of paperwork, there's a lot to learn that I didn't know about. And I'm continuously learning. I had to become really, really humble in the grounds of learning. And so, with a financial counselor, even if you have nothing, you can talk to a financial counselor and they can get you started on helping you to explore what does this look like for your future. So we started there with those challenging conversations when we were still in a place of just barely being able to pay our bills. And then the next step was, do we want to invest in things that we know nothing about when Stephen sold the company? Or do we want to invest in our dreams? And so, do you remember the movie where they build the baseball field, the Field of Dreams? That's us this year, right? Holy Toledo. Pick a year to be able to do this. And this is the year that we picked to like kind of work on dreams together. Crazy, crazy. So every morning we would read and I would pray and I'd go out to the forest and I'm like, oh my gosh, how do we become aligned to really nourish each other? How does that happen? How do we open our hearts instead of, right? That fury, that rage, righteous. It is righteous. How do we soften our tongues in a way that is welcoming for humanity with gratitude? Wow, I see you're having a really challenging time. I see that. Thank you so much for your anger. How can I be part of making all of this work as one symbiotic system? We're all here together. So we invested the money in order to start creating this. And in less than a year, this has all come together. And it's been day in and day out, mostly for Stephen coming out here and taking the tapes and measuring everything. I'll see if I can show you, but of course it's it's perfect symmetry. So again, if you look up and then if you look down, there's lines on the floor and the lines on the walls all evenly match. And so it's the belief beyond all recognition in order to get to this place. So tonight, I just wanted to say that I'm, extraordinarily grateful to be here. Some of the books that I really appreciated are Wake Up, Your Life is Waiting for You by Lynn Grabhorn. Powerful book. I think you need to clean up Like me personally, I had to clean up a lot of areas of my life, a lot of them, making amends whenever possible, asking to pray ahead of conversations. And I recognize that, there's atheists out there. There's people who believe in multitudes of gods out there. Whatever it is that calls you in and draws you into a place of humbleness apart from ego. So we've arrived here, and it's still on the very edge, right, of faith. And I don't know what happens tomorrow, but I'm grateful to be here today. And I didn't get this through I'm right. I got this through deep listening. I got this through deep prayers. I got this through a lot of gratitude, only to be sitting here in this moment. So tonight I would just ask, what are the songs that you'd like to hear through these speakers? And if you know of phenomenal musicians who haven't caught a break, send them our way, because we're doing one free song as we're getting the studio all dialed up and dialed in. They can come out here, hang out. We've got it pretty separated from everybody, and we come through and we clean all the time. And clearly there's enough space that people can easily stand at least 6 to 10 feet apart. And we can have them broken up in different, so they're coming in at different times. Whatever your purpose is, may it be more than you, much grander, something that it's going to take lifetimes in order to fulfill. May whatever is on your heart, whatever bitterness or anger or fear, may that soften for you. We're called here to lean into each other. I'd really like to thank Spirituality Gone Wild tonight, really, for being here on this incredible journey. Keep praying for us. We're here at Silver Birch Studios, and I will keep praying for you. Again, please reach out if you know great musicians who are really about trustworthy love and ready to amplify this out to the world, because we have the studio in order to get this out vibrationally as we're all moving through these times together. My prayers are with you. My gratitude is with you. I believe in you. Keep going. Blessings.